For a while now, I've had this pattern that I go into when things get heavy. When I start to push the squats, when I start to really grind out those reps, there's a particular pattern that I go into. And some people also share this same pattern, and I find it really interesting. And I feel like when I watch other people train and push themselves, I'll look for which muscle right now is the one that's the weakest link on this person. What is failing first? What is crumbling the whole structure? What is the first man to lay down? The first muscle of the whole team of muscles that we are using to get this damn weight going, which one falls first? That gives you clues on what the training should be in the coming weeks. Simply take a whatever, 80%, 85%, 90%, doesn't really matter. Something between 1 and 5 reps I would recommend. Take that weight and run with it. Push it. Then record it. Record yourself and then watch that recording and study it. And think to yourself, what do I think after watching this footage, after watching myself push this hard, what in this movement pattern is causing the first breakdown? Because that first breakdown is very, very important. And this is something that I often think about. And when I watch other people, I'm always looking through the same lenses. What is failing first? Because I feel like if that thing doesn't fail, the second man in line, that second muscle in line probably has an easier job. But as soon as the first domino falls, you are screwed. There's momentum against you now. And so I feel like if that first thing doesn't fall down, if that first muscle doesn't fatigue, if that first muscle is just a little bit stronger, there's weight on the bar. And it's almost like synergistically, there's a lot more weight on the bar. So when I watch other people lift, I'm like, okay, so what's going on here? People are starting to get fatigued. And all of a sudden, you start to see the butt shoot back. You start to see the shins go a little bit more vertical, a little bit too soon. And all of a sudden, they're going to this hingy pattern. And I always wonder to myself, what is going there? I think 9 out of 10 people listening to this will go, quads. Quads are at fault here. The quads are failing, and that's why this is all happening. For a long time, I've wondered about that. I've had periods where I've gone after quads. I've had periods where I've gone after hamstrings and other things. And I'm always thinking to myself, if I get really, really strong quads, do I stay in the quads longer? Or is the pattern the same? I don't know why. It's really funny. I speak to people all the time. Obviously, lifting is a big hobby of mine, and people kind of identify me as the guy that squats every day. I don't know why they do that. But I was talking to a colleague at work, and she was saying, we were talking about, she started squatting or whatever, she started working out, and she said, man, I feel it all in my quads. And I thought to myself, isn't that bloody ironic? Every single girl that I speak to says to me, all I feel is my quads going up in smokes. Never feel it in my butt. Never feel it in anything other than my quads. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I wish I had your problem, because all I ever feel is the opposite of that. And then she said something that was really interesting. She's like, yeah, most girls feel it in their quads. Most guys feel it in the posterior chain. And I thought, isn't that an evil thing? Isn't that bad? Right? Who wants a guy with a fat truck at the back? Right? And who wants a chick with the biggest quads like Tom Platz? Shouldn't that be swapped around? The chicks have the posterior chain and the guys have the quads, right? I think every gym bro would want that scenario, not the opposite. Because every girl in the gym that I've ever seen, all they do is they chase the freaking hip thrusts, glute thrusts, bridges, and all this sort of stuff because they want the butt, right? And we started talking about that, and it was talking about structures of males and females. And I said something about the Q angle. I don't know if you guys know about the Q angle. It's the angle that essentially the femur comes out, or the femur points towards your knees, right? Women usually have wider hips, and that makes a bigger Q angle. That's my understanding of it anyway. And I think that changes the way you move. That's just a layman's, not looking into it, version of it. But man, I wish I had that problem. More quads. Now, for a lot of guys, the fellas that you saw in today's video, a lot of guys have a similar pattern. The moment they started getting a bit tired, or the reps started getting on, and they're moving some decent weight, you start to see a pattern where they start to become more hingy as the set goes on. Less squatty, more hingy. And if you're me, you're freaking hingy from the first rep. The whole thing is a hinge. That's what it feels like to me. So more quads? Is that the prescription? What if I said more abs? Isn't that interesting? Maybe the abs are failing. Why would the abs make you lean over? Well, I have this sneaky suspicion that for us to stay vertical in squats, we need a lot of anterior chain, right? Anterior chain doesn't mean just quads. It means hip flexors and along with that, the abs on the front side, right? The core on the front side. Abs, obliques, internal, external, all that good stuff. So what happens when that starts to fail? Well, we start to go away from the front and we go to the back. We start to use the lumbar spine. And how do we use the lumbar spine? We go into a hinge. I'm not sure. But it's something that I think about. Okay, the reason why we shoot our butt back is because the whole anterior chain has failed. Let's go into the posterior chain. Maybe it's just that. Maybe I'm thinking too deep. Maybe it's the quads. Maybe it's not the quads. Maybe it's the abs. Maybe it's all of them. The anterior chain has failed. It's beginning to fail with each rep that we do. We start to go more and more hingy. It's something interesting and something that I was looking at and thinking about as the fellas were squatting today, the 185 for reps. And it just crossed my mind. I have a similar pattern, and I saw the same thing in them. It's interesting, isn't it? Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.